Good morning.
Morning.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
My name's Isaac Baruch. Isaac Baruch.
Mr. Baruch, where do you currently live?
I live in Los Angeles.
Do you know the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp?
Yes.
How do you know Mr. Depp?
I know him since teenagers. We met in Florida.
And could you tell the jury a little bit about your experience meeting Mr. Depp when you were teenagers in Florida?
Yeah, we were both playing in bands. We had mutual friends, and that we met in probably 1980. And yeah, we hit it off. We got along with each other. And yeah.
How often did you see Mr. Depp when you were teenagers together in Florida?
A few times a month. I'd say it could be more, a little more or whatever, because, you know, we'd see each other at parties and clubs, nightclubs where the bands played. Yeah, like that.
And for how long were you both living in Florida and seeing each other somewhat regularly?
Well, we met in like 1980, so, and then we both moved away. He moved to California, I moved to New York. What was that, from 80 to 83? That was that, like 4 years?
At some point in time, did you also move to California?
Yeah.
And did you reconnect with Mr. Depp when you got there?
Yeah.
Around what time was that?
Sometime during the first year, and then afterwards, after the first year, more and stuff. Yeah.
About what year would you say that was?
Oh, I moved to California in September of '85.
And did you know if Mr. Depp was working when you arrived in California in 1985?
Well, I knew he was pursuing acting at that time. Yeah, he's looking for work because he's pursuing acting.
How often did you see Mr. Depp when you first moved to California?
Well, like I said, the first year, a few times. Afterwards, I had a friend whose girlfriend lived in the same building as Johnny. And so then hanging out over there, I ended up seeing Johnny more often. And plus, my friend, who I'm talking about, whose girlfriend lived in the same building, he was playing in a band, and they needed another guitar player, and Johnny ended up joining the band, so we were hanging out a lot more often.
What were you doing when you moved out to California?
I was pursuing music also. Working retail jobs and trying to get a band, make a band, you know.
Did there come a time when you began working for Mr. Depp?
Oh, yeah.
When was that?
Oh, that's later on. That's like in 1993.
What were you doing for Mr. Depp when you started working for him in 1993?
Well, he owned a place called the Viper Room, and which is a music venue, nightclub, bar, and bands play. And it was already open for 6 months. And the girl who was working, the person who was working as office manager didn't want to work there anymore. So the guy who was running the place for Johnny, who was a friend named Sal Jenko, another Florida friend from back in 1980, when we all first meet, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, Isaac, do you want to work this job?"
I don't think it's offered for the truth of the matter.
I mean,
That's fine. I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
At some point in time, did you stop working at the Viper Room for Mr. Depp?
Oh, yeah.
When was that?
Well, I worked from 93 to 98. In 98, I moved away.
Did you return to LA again at some point?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
I moved back December of 2002.
What did you do for work when you returned to LA?
Well, for 2 weeks, I worked at an art gallery, and then I went back to the Viper Room on New Year's Eve.
How long were you working at the Viper Room at that point in time?
It was another year, and then the place changed hands.
Were you working on anything else while you were working at the Viper Room in that time frame?
Yeah, I was sidewise. I was teaching myself art.
And what steps were you taking to teach yourself art at that time?
Books, learning how to draw and paint, and taking community college classes.
At some point in time, did you begin pursuing art on a full-time scale?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I was working at the Viper Room, taking classes, and then at one point, the club changed hands completely after a year, 2004. And I was given a choice of either keep working for these new owners, or Johnny, out of his pocket, was going to give a severance pay to whoever didn't want to work there anymore. So I took the severance pay, and then it helped me continue on to finish community classes, private classes, and then be able to transfer to Cal State University. He looked at me and says, I got an idea. How about I be a patron, and we put together an art show, make a body of work, and then I'll throw a party and invite people, and I'll sell the stuff for you, and you could keep all the money. So he didn't buy any paintings there. Instead, he offered me a complete patronship.
So what did you understand he meant by becoming your patron?
Well, it was going to financially make it possible for me to just paint every day and put together a body of work, so that way then it could be sold.
How did he plan to do that?
Objection to what he planned on doing.
What did you understand he planned to do to make that possible for you?
I could tell you that what it included was that the next day I ended up moving into I moved into a art studio penthouse at the Eastern Columbia building. It was, listen, I got a place for you to go ahead and live and work and put this body of art together, and I'll take care of you. You don't have to worry about anything.
And what was the place where you were going to live that Mr. Depp offered you?
The Eastern Columbia building.
Did you take him up on that offer to live at the Eastern Columbia building?
Yeah, of course.
And how did that make you feel?
I started crying. One day you're in your mother's garage selling paintings for $100, $200, $300 on eBay. Next thing you know, it's an art show, and like you don't have to worry about diddly squat. Of course. I was flipping out.
When did you move into the Eastern Columbia building?
The next day after we met and we talked. The next day, I get a phone call from a guy named Kevin Murphy, who is working for Johnny, and I go and he says, hey, meet me at this address. And I go and I meet him, and here I am in front of this building. This is a beautiful building. This is like, it's 13 floors, but it's from the 1930s, some Art Deco, beautiful building. And I'm looking, I'll go, all right, this is unreal. What, there's going to be, all right, it's going to be one of these apartments or whatever, one of these places here. I go in with Kevin Murphy. He takes me all the way up to the roof. We go into penthouse 2, and I walk in and I'm like crying, going, it's beautiful. This is like a mansion situation to me.
Mr. Baruch, how long did you end up living at the Eastern Columbia building?
3 years and 7 months.
Your Honor, I'd like to show the witness Plaintiff's Exhibit 116.
It's not on the screen.
Yeah.
What is it?
This is the floor plan of the roof. All the penthouses up on the roof at the Eastern Columbia.
And that's the building where you lived starting in March 2013, is that right?
I moved in the first week of March 2013, yeah.
Mr. Baruch, can you describe for the jury what is depicted here in Exhibit 116?
Yeah, so the right side of this graph is, there's a pool there, there's another, top of another apartment that actually starts on the floor below. It's a 2-story apartment. But there's a pool there, and there's a gym, workout room. And the left side, there's at the bottom, there's an X, and that's the elevator. And so you walk out of the elevator, you make a little left, and there's part of Penthouse 5 right there, straight ahead. And then you keep walking straight, and then you make a left, a sharp left, and the actual Penthouse 5 is straight ahead. And then you hang a right, and you start walking up that way. On your right is going to be Penthouse 1. On your left is going to be Penthouse 4. When you get to the end of that corridor is the door for Penthouse 3. And if you hang a right, oh look, there it is, it came up on the screen. And if you hang a right and you go down to the end is the door to Penthouse 2. That's the apartment that I lived in.
And who did you understand owned these penthouses?
Oh, Johnny owned them all.
Which one did you live in?
Penthouse 2.
Was anyone else living in the penthouses at the time that you moved in March 2013?
No, I was the first one to move in. I moved in the first week of March, and then a couple of weeks later, 2-3 weeks later, then Johnny and Amber moved in, and then after that, the next one to move in is Rocky, Raquel Pennington, Amber's friend, and then at some point her sister moved in, Whitney, and also at some point Rocky's boyfriend moved in with her in Penthouse 1.